Hello and welcome to Makers.dev episode number 65. Chris, Slava Ukraini.
Yeah, that is still going on. We talked about that last time. It makes even less sense now. We're 12 days into the invasion of Ukraine, and I still don't know what Russia's end game is.
I keep falling into YouTube rabbit holes in a constrained way. I'm still getting my work done. That are all these analyses of what he could possibly be doing, and the only narrative I'm hearing that stands up is that he didn't want it to go this way, but kind of felt trapped, and he lost the cover of like what the media angle on this was supposed to be, of what the justification was, and then he was like, let's just go for it, and now it's going horribly wrong. So I'm excited to see how this plays out, and hopefully it does not end in nuclear Armageddon.
Yeah, it's just an awful situation all around. So, yeah.
What did you get up to this last week?
Yeah, so I had a big week. We talked last week. Well, first of all, my mic is working again, I believe.
Yay.
Some combination of restarting my computer and getting a new Scarlett 2x2 interface. One of those things worked. So, and then I just finished my machine learning test, which is probably boring to talk about, but that happened. And then the big thing was I finished the acquisition of MeetingPlace, it's sold. So yeah, if you didn't hear last week, I decided to sell MeetingPlace, sort of, not on a whim, that's not the right word, but I sort of just decided to check out MicroAcquire. So MeetingPlace is completely sold now. It only took 2 weeks, and we can talk about that. Like, that was super fast. So I have a celebratory afternoon drink because celebrating that plus my machine learning test.
Congratulations. What a interesting life development. So we talked a little bit about this, but to recap, I think the reason to sell it is you had a number in your head of like what you would be happy to sell it for, and presumably you were able to sell it for more than that number. After going through this work of listing it, you found that like people were willing to bid it at or above that number. And now that it's gone, it's just like this mental burden of more bandwidth so that you can focus on other stuff. Is that about right?
Yeah, it was mostly about relieving the mental burden of it. Like I had all these ideas about what I wanted it to be, and every time I was going to work on something else, I felt guilty for not working on MeetingPlace, and that's probably a sign that I should have worked on it more. But like I was to the point where I either had to double down on it or let it go, and so I decided to let it go.
I'm excited to see what you do with this new free psychic energy. Tell me a little bit more about finalizing the deal. Were there any surprises? Anything that you would like to do for next time? The next time you sell a company, and things that like do you just get a check? Is it an ACH transfer? I'm curious about how that process finished out.
Yeah, so it'll be a little different so MeetingPlace was the final price was like, if I would have just consulted the whole time, then I would have gotten more money. And so like that's the level that we're dealing on. But it's just still enough to be interesting to me. And that was one reason we're able to, finalize it so quickly. Like, this isn't a huge company selling, or I'm not selling to a huge company. I was just selling to another developer. So we were both able to work really quickly. I think I sort of talked about this last time, but the biggest problem was like just all of the accounts for MeetingPlace were sort of integrated into my other accounts. So like Stripe was separate. I knew to keep Stripe separate. So that's very important. In Stripe, you can just separate it. That's easy. But the rest were hard. Like the hardest one was S3. S3 doesn't allow you to transfer buckets between user accounts. And so you have to like use their CLI to like download and then sync all the objects and then switch it over in the app. So like that took a while to figure out. But overall it took, I think, 3 or 4 sessions of an hour or 2 each to transfer everything from me to him. All the accounts that we could transfer with root credentials, we did. Everything else, like transfer from my account to his and everything. So it went relatively smoothly, but keeping things separate is an important lesson probably. I can talk about the bidding process a little bit too. So on MicroAcquire, you list it and then you have a bunch of bids come in, or not bids really, you have a bunch of interest come in, and then you meet with whoever wants to meet. And then you start getting letters of intent, which are basically offers. And then as soon as you click accepts on one of the letters of intent, you can't message any of the buyers again, which I didn't know. I was going to. So I had 2 offers in the end, and I was going to accept one and tell the other person I accepted the other one. And I clicked accept on the letter of intent. and I couldn't message the other guy anymore.
Oh man.
And so he ended up emailing me actually outside, and he was like, "So what happened?" And I was like, "Yeah, sorry, I couldn't message you afterwards." Yeah, but yeah, that's how it went. And again, like it wasn't a giant company, so negotiations were relatively short. And so money is paid. So he's in Canada and I'm in the U.S., and so it was a little tricky getting international wires set up, but we did that. And then for the next 2 months, I'm technically on the hook for like support, basically. So like as he's getting ramped up in the app, if the service goes down or something, then I'm kind of on call. Or if there's some complicated customer question that comes up, then he's going to send me an email and I can help him out. So yeah, did that answer some questions? I could talk about anything else, but yeah, that's generally how it went.
This app is conspicuously not titled "Dude, Where's My Web App?" So presumably you have the money in your bank account. How did that dance play out? How did he send the money first?
Yeah, so we sort of did it in stages partly because there's a limit between his bank and my bank because of international whatever. Anyway, so he sent one payment and then we transferred. We had all the things to transfer lined up, and it sort of worked out that he was going to send a payment, then we're going to transfer everything, and he was going to send the rest. But it sort of worked out that he had to break it up into multiple payments, and we had to break it up over multiple sessions. So he sort of like sent a payment, and there's 24 hours between each of his payments. So he sent a payment, and then we transferred some of the assets, and then he sent another one, and we transferred some more. And so it was kind of like we sort of interleaved payment transfer and asset transfer, not like on purpose. That's just the way it kind of worked out. So it went pretty well from that perspective. But
I like that. That seems balanced. Yeah. Keep trading one piece and keep going. I'm curious about the code base. Something I've been sort of baseline anxious about is if I ever sold one of my companies, I'm now sending all my code to someone else, and now they're going to be like, Christian, this is a mess. What are you selling me? And I could also see difficulty in, depending on what the stack is and depending on how many third-party services, that when they get it, it's just this ball of complexity and they have no idea what to do. And there's this entire stack of like, wow, you are doing a lot of weird things in Redis, and I don't even know how Redis works. How did you two frame that sort of complexity?
Yeah, so after you sign a letter of intent, then you enter due diligence, and for more complicated apps or companies, that would probably involve like a third party looking at your code or even interviewing your developers and stuff like that. For this one, he just wanted a document he listed a bunch of stuff out. And part of it was like all of the different services I use. So, and where they're hosted. So like, Redis, Postgres, and all that, where it's hosted. And then, like what the stack is. And then also some screenshots of code. So he didn't ask for all the code up front. But he just wanted like screenshots of the major parts of the code. And so that's how he did his code quality check, basically. And then also like verify Stripe revenue and also like examples of customer emails so he could see what kind of support comes in and at what frequency. So basically just like nothing super specific, but like high level overviews of big chunks of the app, and that was during due diligence. And so technically, either of us could have backed out at that phase because we didn't sign a purchase agreement, just the letter of intent. But then after he was happy with due diligence, he said an actual purchase agreement, which had like the actual amount and terms and all that stuff on it, which were in the letter of intent as well. But that could change. Like one thing that you hear, which is true, is everything is a negotiation right up until you transfer everything, or I guess sign the purchase agreement. That's like when it's a done deal. Just things aren't transferred yet. And so, like he could have, even though the price was set in a letter of intent, he could have changed it. For example, if something came up in due diligence or I could have said something different or whatever too. But yeah, it went pretty smoothly, mostly because there's a small app. So, I mean, that's super nice. Like if I was going to do it again, I'd try to sell a small app, which is not like, not great advice if you want a lot of money, I guess. But selling a small app was not very stressful compared to what I've heard other people talk about. Yeah,
that does sound much more straightforward. So what I'm understanding is due diligence is his opportunity to poke around, and figure out, is this a high quality app? Are there weird support requests coming in that I wouldn't be able to handle? That's the tire kicking phase, and then so him asking for like screenshots of your code and what the different services were. That gave him a good enough picture of your code base that he was comfortable buying it. Do you feel like based on the information you gave him in that due diligence that he had an accurate snapshot of what things were? Could you have hidden complexity in code debt in what he saw?
Yeah, I think he got a good picture because I wanted this to go well, and so I was really upfront about all the anything that I thought he might think would be weird. Yeah.
Okay.
So anything that I thought he might be surprised by, I was really upfront about. If I was less truthful, I probably could have hidden a lot of things, especially because like he didn't hire some third-party firm to go through all of the code or all of the customer emails or anything like that.
Yeah.
Just because it's like that would have probably cost I don't know, several $1,000s by itself, and so so it just wasn't worth it. But he was taking a bit of a gamble that I was being truthful when I represented my stuff. Yeah.
Got it. Okay, that sounds like it's reasonable. If it was a bigger deal, you would want to invest more in due diligence. He was taking a risk because it was a smaller app, and there's a certain amount of trust. That's kind of nice for you because like the money is money either way. Like the asymmetry there seems like it benefits you more for smaller apps than it would for larger apps. For larger apps, like they're investing a lot to vet to make sure that it's actually what you say it is. But for smaller apps, you're still getting the money. And the money is money. You don't need to verify the quality of the money in a wire transfer. But potentially, if you were dishonest, you could be sending him a fragile code base or something.
Yeah.
Fun. Okay, I'm getting a much clearer picture of how this dance works, and I think I'm much less afraid of it than I was before. I'm sort of on the fence about like if I want to be doing this because there's smaller apps. Like there's an app I made in college called Textbooks Please. That's a textbook search engine. The idea is college textbooks are stupidly expensive, but if you shop around for them, you can save like 90% off of what the bookstore sells you. So my method in college was, well, I know about these 4 different sites where you can buy books, like Abe Books and Amazon and eBay. So let me, for each of my books, for each of my classes, so we're talking about like 10 books, let me go through each of these 4 sites. So we're talking about like 40 different searches. And then I'll buy it on the cheapest site. And of course, the thing to do there is just to make a program to do it for you. So the only thing you have to do is say like, okay, well, here are my books. Go shop on all the sites for me. And then a next step of abstraction from that is, well, here are my classes. So given my list of classes, find the books and then shop on each site. So I made a site that did that. And it's the first and most glorious, just so nice way that I made money on the internet. Like the first time I got actual money in my bank account from like a thing that I made. It was just, man, I was in ecstasy. It was so cool. It felt magical. And so that was like 2011 that this thing has just been sort of chugging along, and it makes like, I don't know, $2,000 a year. And I refreshed the code base recently because I was using it as a way to learn React and more of this serverless stuff. So it's a modern code base, and it works well, and it's still making money. And like, that's the first thing that comes to mind if I was going to sell something. But I sort of have an emotional attachment to it of like, it doesn't take anything to operate. And okay, if it's making $2,000 a year, what am I going to sell it for? Like $5,000, $10,000 if the multiple is crazy. And it's not that complicated. Like anyone who's buying this, I would like, you just make your own. So I don't, I'm like, I don't have an email list or something of college students who are buying textbooks from me. So I don't know what to do. I would like to practice selling things, but I don't know that. I guess File Inbox would make the most sense to sell, but like I'm right in the middle of just totally revamping the code base, and then from that's going to swing into, okay, well, now I finally feel free to market this thing emotionally because I've solved the 2 biggest problems that were holding me back of the technical debt and the infrastructure stuff and customer support. So maybe I think loosely I'm going to frame this as like, in a year, revisit this question, and in the meantime, just focus on growing File Inbox, and then if I can get a nice graph where like the revenue's going up and to the right, make that calculation of like, okay, well, is this worth more to me as it is, or would this be better if I just had a bunch of cash and could release this from my brain and move on to the next project? Does that sound about right?
Yeah, I think so. I think in the situation you're in right now, you are at a place where you're cranking away pretty well on File Inbox. And so, yeah, if you are able to show, a graph that's up and to the right for customers, then your multiple will be higher basically. And so, yeah, I think if you want to maximize the price that you get for it and you're happy to work on it, then yeah, I would work on it for a little longer and get the graph up and to the right.
Cool. Okay. That's a good sanity check. I don't have a ton to talk about. Do you have anything else you want to mention from last week?
I think I mentioned this last week. I'm now in rank or place like number 10 on the snow water competition, which means I probably won't finish in top 5. I'm in place number 16. Me and my team on the Kaggle competition, place 16 out of like 2,000 people.
Wow.
We want to be at like I think place 12 or something like that. I think there's like 12 places for money, and so which is high. Like usually it's like 3 or 5, but this one's at 12, and so we're working really hard. There's only like a week left on that. Yeah, so that's what I've been doing. And then this machine learning test, which I'm now done with. I was as prepared as I was going to be for it. Whatever, it's a test. And there were some questions that like I thought I knew exactly what I was doing, and at the end of it, it was sort of a weird answer. And whenever you get kind of a weird answer on a test, you're a little curious because like usually test answers are nice and tidy. And so I hope that I at least did most of the process right, and if the answer is wrong, at least I get partial credit. So that's what I've been doing. So now I can forget everything I learned in the first half of the machine learning course because the second test is non-cumulative. So I'm happy about that. Yeah.
Congrats on
we can talk about we did Coworking this last week.
Yes.
And so I pushed forward the Slack app that I'm working on, and so I can talk about that a little, and then you pushed forward File Inbox, I guess. So yeah. Do you want to talk about that?
I would love to. I'd love to start by saying, like, sometimes when I find new productivity hacks, it's a shiny new thing, and it's like, all I had to do was have a physical tomato timer on my desk, and that's the thing that helps me. And that usually happens, like, around day 10, that the luster kind of wears off, and that has not happened yet. And so I'm feeling real optimistic. And this is something that other people have talked about. I've heard this idea that if you have a accountability buddy, it helps you go forward. And I've already talked about how upset I am that this actually worked for me.
Yeah.
How simple am I that's all I needed? But like this feels transformative. This feels like I need this in my life now. Seeing the results of it, comparing before and after the amount of work I was getting done on File Inbox versus these last 2 weeks. We had another week of I got 9 hours and 14 minutes done on File Inbox, which I think was very close to what I got the week before. Yeah, 9 hours and 26 minutes. And that's partially because I haven't finished my 4th POM today. So, like, jamming. Fantastic. And only 6 hours and 15 minutes of that was with you. But I found this week, I tried to mentally simulate a little bit more that, like, my accountability was still there even if you weren't there. So I took a day off in the middle of the week to do paramotor stuff. And then on Saturday and Sunday, I did 2 POMs each to, like, make up for it. And because this habit of, like, I sit down and I push this keyboard command on my keyboard, and that starts my music playing and starts the timer and 2 other things. And, that's a thing that I'd practiced 4 times a day for almost every weekday the week before. It was easier to get into that on the weekend, too. So I'm loving this system. It's so good. I got so much done, and I'm just, like, steadily marching towards this place of this huge project of making File Inbox serverless is finally going to get done. So I'm feeling really happy about it overall. So, yes. How are you feeling about it? And also, what did you get done last week?
Yeah, really similar. Like, I've been wanting to do this Slack app thing, right? And I enjoy it when I work on it, but, like, other things were getting in the way, like the Kaggle competition, which I also enjoy working on, my machine learning class, which I have to work on because I signed up for it. And so I just had too many things going on in order to properly prioritize everything. So what this does is this gives me, like, 2 dedicated hours every day to work on the Slack app stuff. So, I've really enjoyed it as well. And I think I will. So my new goal, MicroConf is in like 3 weeks. My new goal is to finish and get it in the Slack App Store by MicroConf. I think before my goal was to do it in like a week, and we both talked about how, like, we vastly underestimate the amount of work for both of our projects, which is pretty funny. But this week was a little weird. So I was getting everything ready for MeetingPlace, the asset transfer. So, like, several of the POMs this week were listing all the services and figuring out how to transfer all of them and that kind of stuff. So I did that. I still counted that towards SaaS work, so I could work on it during the Palms. But yeah, like I'm excited that it works. I think it makes work that you have to do, like take file inbox and make it serverless, and it just makes it less scary. You know, it's like instead of make file inbox serverless, it's, you know, Chris is going to be on, so I better be on.
Yeah.
And I better be working on SaaS related stuff.
Yeah.
And that's the whole goal.
Yes.
And so yeah, just by simplifying the actual goal means we actually get work done. So that's good.
Yeah. Yeah. It makes it much less scary. And then the intermediate goals of like, well, if I was by myself, the threshold for just messing around for 25 minutes would be much lower, or like delaying starting work. But knowing that like Chris and I are starting at the same time, and in 25 minutes, I'm going to have to say at least one thing of what I did to Chris. Like, okay, well, I might as well do this thing. And then that rolls into actually getting stuff done. So that feels really good. I like setting a goal for MicroConf. 3 weeks, man, in digging into this, like, it's just exploded in complexity of what I thought I would need to get done. Like, there is a place that I feel like I could get that would be meaningful in 3 weeks, but I don't know where to set that flag. I'll have to think about that, because I want to have much more realistic expectations of like, okay, based on the pace that I've done for the last 3 weeks, like that's probably the pace I'm going to keep going on for the next 3 weeks. So what is twice the amount of work that I've gotten done so far, and what would that look like? Interesting. I have two interesting things I want to talk about with you on this topic. The first is I have nothing else to talk about that I did this last week. I did some stuff with like paramotoring, and I hung out with my family, but like I didn't push forward my flashcard app at all, and I have no crazy hot take ideas for you of like what if we had Tinder for dogs? If you want to walk your dog with I have none of that. And I don't know how to feel about that. Like, I've tuned the dial to be more convergent as opposed to divergent, and I like the result of that better, but I also kind of don't, because it's kind of fun to have a bunch of ideas and be pulled in different directions. I think I don't want to lose that ability to have different ideas and to go in different directions, and I think I was too far on that side of the spectrum before, and I don't want to lose that. And what that might look like is if I was more disciplined about the rest of my day. Well, no, because I'm kind of enjoying that. Like, I have this really structured time and then unstructured time. I don't know. I'm chewing on this idea of like I've lost a little bit of that divergent creative spark, and if that's the trade-off, so be it. But I think I would want to do this more seasonally or something. What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah. So my first thought is that probably sounds like growth. Like, it's getting stuff done is good generally. The other thing is I wouldn't at all worry about losing the ability to be divergent. Like, yeah, I see in your personality that you will always have ideas, and so don't worry about that. I think things come in seasons, right? It's good to have kind of like what we were talking about. So last time with John Cleese's open versus closed, that's what you were talking about, the divergent versus convergent. Mm-hmm. And you have to have, like, you just had several months of kind of his open mode version, and he recommends like doing it a few hours, like every week or something. But you had like several months of that, and so I think it's good to turn that down and turn up the part where you actually go into closed mode and get stuff done. Mm-hmm. And you'll kind of oscillate. Like I've talked about before, like I notice oscillations in what I find interesting. So recently it's been all this data competition stuff, but now that we're back sort of on SaaS stuff and MicroConf is coming up, now I'm thinking a lot more about SaaS stuff. And so I think it's fine to sort of oscillate between these things. So if you are feeling good about, actually getting stuff done in file inbox, I would lean really hard into that, and like, don't worry about losing your ability to come up with crazy ideas. You will have plenty.
That's reassuring. Okay, I'm clarifying this thought then. I think going forward, as long as I have closed work to be doing, so like this file inbox project is defined. It's very clear cut. There's a whole bunch of work to be doing. I think it makes sense to just put my head down, go through the work, get it done as fast as possible, knowing that there's an end to it. And then at the end, I can pull my head back up and be like, all right, what's the next thing to work on? Because thinking about what the like this is very defined. You can't just like develop an app forever. After this, there's going to be things I need to think about of like marketing and like other stuff to bolt onto it and figuring out advertisements and things. And so that is much more open work. That's much more like exploratory reading books and stuff and having ideas. And in the process of doing more of that open work, I think I'll inevitably just like find, here's this thing in marketing that I would love this tool for it to be able to automate this. So let me bang with this tool really quick. Okay, that feels much better. What do you think this structure that we're doing of this co-working would fit in more of an open model? Like, that doesn't feel as structured to me if we're spending 25 minutes like coming up with ideas for how to market stuff. Or like, read, deploy empathy for 25 minutes. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, no. So what we're doing with the co-working stuff is very much closed work kind of stuff. If you were interested in coming up with idea sort of stuff still in the co-working model, then I would have to listen to his talk again, or there's a book now. He has a very prescriptive way to do it. It's basically like you have a defined amount of time, and so like we have that with co-working, but I think it's more like 2 hours. I can't remember. And he's basically like, for the next 2 hours, like you just think about everything. It's basically like a brainstorming session, right? Whatever you want. He has some more prescriptions as well. I have to re-listen to the talk, but yeah. So I think that's more like what it would be. It'd be like, we just and maybe this is so when we do co-working now, we have muted, everything muted. Maybe during open time we have it unmuted and talk to each other more like a brainstorming session. Like
yeah. Oh, of course. Yeah. That makes total sense because that is much more collaborative. That's much more open. That's much more just like take ideas and stick them to the wall. I'm reminded of my favorite class and probably the most useful class I took in undergrad was on human-centered design. The professor, Kate Canales, is a alumni of IDEO and Frog Design. IDEO famously worked with Apple and designed the mouse and a couple of other key things. And she taught us this process of having ideas. And it involved so many sticky notes. It starts off with this totally divergent, like you start with a question and then you can make the question more focused by saying, how might we? So if you're thinking about, I don't know, how can we get places faster? You might frame that as how might we get places faster? And that is now going to make it more narrowly defined. Like, okay, well, we could get a car. Okay, well, how might we get a car? And then we're drilling down. Versus, why would we want to? Makes it more broad. So if you start with a question of like, how do we get more places? Well, why would you want to? Well, because we need interactions with other humans. And then that might lead you down to, okay, well, how might we get interactions with other humans? We can drill back down and say, well, we could be on Zoom. So you can sort of traverse the level of complexity that way. And then once you're on a question that feels like a good question, and you can be sticking down in sticky notes all the interesting questions in this, then you collaboratively take turns writing down ideas on sticky notes, and you put those next to the questions. So for the question like, how might we get places? You might write down, we could have a jetpack, and you put the jetpack down. We might have a paramotor, and paramotor on, you put that down. And then from that, so that's just like, she had this model of little turtles that she learned from a British man. So when she was quoting him, she would say, little turtles. The idea being turtles are a K-type species. I think it's K versus N. They have a whole bunch of children, and the game is just have so many that some of them will survive. And that's the game with ideas. The jetpack idea is ridiculous, but this is a game of little turtles. We just need to get more ideas out there, and then some of them are going to be good. So then once you've gotten all the ideas out there, you can prune them. So that was a summary of an entire semester. That was pretty good. I think in more open versions of work, once we've gotten through our defined like head down closed work, it would make sense to do something like that IDEO process for what the next version of work be. So I would get so much value out of doing that with you of like marketing. And starting that with a question of how might I grow the income of File Inbox, grow that MRR. And then you could say, well, why would you want to? And I was like, oh, actually, maybe I don't need to do that. But, we come up with different questions in that and then kind come up with different ideas, and then from those ideas you can interact with it, and then I could do the same for you, and then that would then define the round of closed work. Okay, that feels really good. I feel like we got a whole little framework here of like how to do all types of work. That makes a lot of sense. I was just talking for like 6 minutes straight. Do you have anything to say?
No, I think that's great. I recognize when you talk about little turtles that the same thing applies to the kaggle competitions that I've been doing, for example. Like at the beginning, you just want to explore as much as possible. And so you do lots of experiments and you just look at lots of bits of the data and it's really messy and everything. And then you find like little bits of signal. And then in the next part of it, you switch to like extracting as much as possible from the little bits that you found. So yeah, I think that's probably how most of all work goes, really. Like you have this exploratory process and then you have more diving down process. That'd be really neat to try, I think.
Cool. Sounds good. I wonder if we'll stay synced in this. Like I've got at least 3 weeks of stuff to be doing on File Inbox. That feels like it might be a longer period of defined work than async.dev. Wait, hold on.
Chat.
No, Acorn Chat. Thank you.
Async.dev is my other one, which it is not like I stopped working on it because we talked about all this before, but I'm curious what to do with it because that domain name is costing me some money every year, and so do I let it go? It's a really good domain name, and I really like the general idea, but you can't hold on to something just because it's really good sometimes. Yeah, I don't know.
I guess if we become unsynced, if one of us finishes our closed exploitative convergent work first, the other one could just take a session of like, okay, well let's have more of an exploratory session. Let's have some an open work time to then define the open work for you, or to define the closed work for you. And now we're back synced up of head down, we're working on stuff. Does that sound about right?
Yeah. I mean, we can't, since we are working on such different projects, we can't like have open time for both of us at the same time. And so, I think it'd be fine to, take 25 minutes out of closed work time to do open work for the other person. I think that's fine.
Cool. Okay. That feels really good. Neat. Cool. Okay. That was the first thing that I wanted to say about coworking. The second thing, we talked last time about admin work for me and came up with this compromise of like, you would start me on the admin POM. And that happened twice last week. And both times I was able to do it all the way through. I got an extra POM of 25 minutes. And on every day we weren't working together, and on every day you didn't remember to do it, I didn't do it. And I hate that. And there's just this like emotional resistance of, man, I just don't want to do it. I'm just throwing a little fit inside. I'm a 2-year-old that's kicking of like, no, I did the File Inbox work. I'm done now. I want to go work on the flashcard thing or go on my paramotor. I don't know what to do about that. I at the same time want you to be more strict and don't because I hate it. That's where I am.
That's why I suggested doing it as your first POM. I don't remember. Did you say no to that? I don't remember why you.
The idea of that I just hate it. As it is today, I'm like looking forward to it, and I don't want to lose that. I'm afraid because this is such a new habit. If I try to change it too much, especially in the direction of like I'm just feeling so much emotional resistance to it, that the whole thing will come crumbling down. So like I really want to just lock this in of like, okay, I'm riding this wave of feeling really excited to start work, at this time. I agree that would be a good solution. I just don't feel ready for it. I also feel like such a wimp. Like I'm sitting here, people, there's a humanitarian crisis in Ukraine, and people are like fighting for their lives, and I'm here just whining about like, I don't want to spend 25 minutes a day working on work that I kind of don't want to do. But that's, I don't know.
You have a meeting once a week with your executive assistant, is that right?
Correct.
What day is that on?
Tuesday usually.
Tuesday. So, I mean, does it make sense for me to say, like, you have to do some work, I assume, for that every week.
Yeah.
So, like, on Mondays or Tuesday, if it's before, that's the day I will absolutely enforce that you do an administrative POM.
Okay.
Otherwise, only if you want to, which is probably never. But like, is one administrative palm a week just before your meeting with your executive assistant? Is that enough to do what you need?
Is it enough to do what I need? I mean, 0 a week is enough to just scrape by,
okay.
And then I can just be like putting fires out as they come. But that's not how I'd like to be living. I'm behind on stuff right now, so I feel like right now the right amount to do is 1 palm a day.
Oh, a day?
Maybe I need to be focusing on the outcome of this instead of just like dreading what the actual work is. Because the outcome of this is like I have these opportunities sitting in my inbox that I'm just not pushing forward because I haven't done them, and there's some minutia of just things I need to take care of that would make my life better. I just don't want to get started on doing it. So. Is there a bigger reward I could give myself, or I don't know.
Think about it this way, maybe. I have heard that for especially developers, you want to be spending about half your time developing and half your time doing marketing and administrative stuff. I'm asking you to do 20% of your time as administrative stuff, which is 1 palm out of 5, right?
Yes.
So really, I'm letting you get away, me as your boss, I'm letting you get away with a lot less administrative work than you should be doing.
All right. That
I don't know if that helps.
Much better framing. That actually does help. Now I feel like I'm getting away with something. Okay. I think for this next week, my goal is just to suck it up and just do it. And I'm going to frame it as I should be doing much more. I should be doing like another 4 palms on administrative stuff, but I get to get away with 1. And the outcome of doing that is disproportionate. I get like a whole bunch of stuff done and get a whole bunch more balls pushed into other people's courts where stuff gets done. And I have this executive assistant now, and so if I want to push more of those things into her court, I can be doing that too. So that's fun. And it's going to feel so much better doing that than not doing it. I was listening to a podcast about grit and emotional resilience and like this idea of getting started and stuff. And they also drew this analogy to getting into cold water. Oh, it was Tim Urban interviewed on the Lex Friedman podcast. Tim Urban's the author of Wait But Why.
Wait But Why.
And he's talking about the same sort of process and how it feels a lot like getting into cold water, that like you have this intellectualization of like how much it's going to hurt to get in the water, and you're just like thinking about that. And he described the same thing I've described of like you're walking around this cold pool and you can just pace back and forth for like hours before actually jumping in. And that people who are really good at getting things done, like Elon Musk, Tim Urban famously wrote a bunch of really interesting interview pieces about Elon Musk and Elon's philosophy. So Tim Urban's view of Elon Musk is that he has eradicated that sort of resistance. That if there's something that he's recognized, this is a thing I should do, that he just does it. If he recognizes, oh, I should jump into this cold pool, he just jumps in the pool. That's what I want. I want to train that out of myself. So this is my version of jumping into a cold pool. This is how I become more like Elon Musk. All right, that was my pep talk. We'll see how it works. I'll report to you next week.
Right.
How many administrative palms I've done. 5. That's not that long. 5. It's like 2 hours and change. Nothing. It's fine. I can do it. All right, I'm done.
Yeah. All right. I feel the same way about administrative stuff and marketing stuff. As soon as I want to make Acorn Chat, the Slack app, a real thing, I will need to do that as well. So I will join you in administrative palm stuff. Yeah, because I need the push as well. So,
brothers. All right. 2 tiny things I wanted to mention. I read a fantastic sci-fi novel series called The 3-Body Problem, and it was great. I would highly recommend it. Mentioned that to you before this podcast. You said you'd also read it. Loved it. It's written by this Chinese author, and the Chinese. It's Chinese. It's Chinese sci-fi. There's all the characters have Chinese names, and the culture is very different. And they talk about the Cultural Revolution is how the first book starts. And my God, horrifying stuff they were doing. Yeah, it was really, really good. Really got me thinking, and like really good sci-fi, just left me sort of shell-shocked of like, oh my God, what if this is actually what's going on? And really good books, I think, change you, and this book has changed me. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I liked it too. I read the first two of the series. They both have like really great reveals in them, like even throughout the book, not just at the end. Yeah, so I tried starting the third book like 2 or 3 times. They're just really long books, and I got them from the library, and I couldn't like get into the third one enough before I had to go back. So eventually I'll read all 3. But yeah, the first 2 I really liked. Yeah.
That's why I love audiobooks. I have all these moments in my day now where as soon as I get in the car, I start an audiobook, and man, I drive for probably, I don't know, like half an hour a day, and then there's a little bit of carryover of like, well, if I'm not doing anything immediately after it, I'll listen to a little bit more. And I can get through like a book every week or a week and a half. It's nuts. Just with roughly half an hour a day. So I've just been like chewing through books on fiction and nonfiction and stuff. It's a lot of fun. One more thing I wanted to talk about. My Paramotor Adventure has been pushed forward a little bit. I went out with my family and the Paramotor and like mixed up the gas at the perfect ratio. You got to mix it with oil and also raise the octane level and also have lead synthetic stuff in it and charge the starter battery and got it up on my back, and it's terrifying. Like it's heavy and there's this huge motor behind you. Yeah. And tried to start it and it wouldn't start, and so I'd like primed the fuel pump again, and it's this whole complicated thing. And then it started, and oh my gosh, it's just like this power behind you. It's oh man, I was just barely on the throttle and it was pushing me forward. I'm really excited to get up in the air with this. I can totally see how that thing compared with a wing flying overhead, like yeah, you could fly, you could just fly. It's a lot of fun, and I'm looking forward to getting that done. I'm thinking probably within the next like month and a half, I'm probably going to have my first solo flight. These things are sort of loosey goosey and really dependent on weather, but that's the way things are looking. So I'm excited about that.
Very cool. Yeah, look forward to the first GoPro video of you up
Good. You'll be the first to see it after the onlookers. And if I die, probably other people on the news will see it first also. But hopefully not. Cool. We have some bombs to get to. So, Chris, that's all I got.
That's all I got too.
Then I'll see you next week. Goodbye.